Hello, everybody. My name is Ray. Welcome to the Evangelical Dark Web. Today, we're going to be talking about the collapse of Hillsong in the United States. Hillsong is collapsing, in my opinion, globally, but most specifically, they are collapsing in the United States, with multiple locations having major leadership crises. So, we're going to be talking about that. A lot of this is because of Brian Houston. He is no longer the head honcho over at Hillsong United. Not only is he been indicted for covering up alleged sex abuse, or him allegedly covering up actual sex abuse, I should say. Um, he has also had his own little Me Too thing going on as well, because he was making rather inappropriate comments, I suppose, according to Hillsong's own investigation. So he's out at Hillsong for good. And we also got to reflect on the fact that Carl Lentz, the pastor of the flagship NYC location of Hillsong, has also had to resign in disgrace after he was cheating on his wife with ugly Instagram models. So, with that said, there is more to the story of what's going on at Hillsong. We had some major financial impropriety at their Dallas location, and the Dallas location would be the most prevalent source of embarrassment for Hillsong in the United States ever since Carl Lentz had to resign in disgrace. So, with that said, the senior pastor of Hillsong Dallas, Reed Bogard, had to resign last year, January 2021. So he resigns abruptly, and that location completely shatters. However, what was not revealed at the time, and what has only been revealed in recent days, was that Reed Bogard was cheating on his wife with another Hillsong staffer. And, because feminism is a thing, this Hillsong staffer, instead of admitting that she was a slut, is accusing him of initially raping her, which I don't buy for a second. That's not what rape looks like. This was a months-long affair that began in, I believe it went on like over 8 years ago. So this is like 2013 to 2014 is when this sexual affair happened. And despite this having gone on many years ago, Reed Bogard, still was able to climb the ladder over at Hillsong. And again, this has been a major embarrassment for Hillsong. There's a lot of major embarrassments going on. So let's talk about the other two locations in the United States that are also having major leadership crises. So we have Sam Collier, the pastor of Hillsong Atlanta. So this pastor wants to leave Hillsong. He's done with Hillsong now that Brian Houston's out. He also wants out. So Sam Collier announced that he will be leaving to start his own church. It will be called Story Church, because we need crappy names for mega churches always. So with that said, this church does intend to be very woke. This guy believes that next to evangelism, the number one goal of the church should be racial reconciliation. That is what he intends to do with Story Church, which will debut on Easter. So he's leaving Hillsong to start his own church, his own mega church franchise, where he can be on top. He can be that Brian Houston or that Moses of the Moses model. So that's what he's leaving to do. We also have a major leadership crisis in Hillsong Phoenix. Now, again, Atlanta and Phoenix are some of the fastest growing areas in the United States. They're some of the fastest growing cities in the United States. So for these locations to have shattering, and Dallas is up there as well. Dallas-Fort Worth, another major growing area, which is probably why these areas had Hillsong churches in the first place. So, and they're collapsing under the weight of their own immorality and definitely some of the aspirations of their current leadership to not, or to branch out and be their own brand, which is definitely what Sam Collier is going to do. Now, Hillsong Phoenix is another instance where their lead pastor, or soon-to-be former lead pastor, Terry Christ, wants out. Now, he apparently, was calling for investigations and stuff like that. He wants more autonomy from the global enterprise, because Hillsong is really a corporation, and these churches are franchises under the Ray Kroc model of Hillsong. Brian Houston was franchising. He was the founder, so to speak. So this is one of the franchisees that is disgruntled with the current trajectory and current scandaled organization that is Hillsong Church. So Terry Christ wants out. This is a quote by him. This has played out in recent weeks. It came down in recent weeks to the demand that we sign non-disclosure agreements and non-competes, meaning if we were removed from our positions, we could not plant churches again within our community for at least 1 year. So that's a quote from the pastor that comes from Christian Post, but all this will be in the description because I've already written this article, so I'm going off of my notes here. So they asked him to sign a non-compete clause in the event that he was fired, which to me, very strange for a pastor to have to sign a non-compete clause. Like, how messed up is that? And you realize that it comes down to these churches believe that people are customers and that they can cannibalize a customer base by splitting off. They realized that, and they apparently wanted to contract accordingly, which is really shady. That is not how churches are supposed to work. Churches are supposed to be more like an amoeba. We grow, we grow, we grow, we split, we grow, we grow, we grow, we split. That is how a church really should be operating. That is a more biblical model for how a church should grow and how a church and church planting should work as well. So apparently the negotiation, like, he wouldn't sign this crap deal, and I don't blame Terry Christ for not signing this crap deal. They've informally, and instead they kind of upped the ante and basically requested secession. They wanted to secede from Hillsong. And apparently you can't do that at Hillsong. So this is another quote by Christ. Specifically, that meant that that the release of our church had to be governed by a local board and to also include a couple of non-Hillsong pastors who are wise and credible and have proven ministries to also be seated on our local board for the sake of accountability by non-vested pastors who have nothing to lose by speaking truth to power. And Chris goes on to say, I was told this week it is all or nothing. We either had to allow the global church to govern our church and to own our properties, or we had to leave. And so with great sadness, I chose to lead. And he goes on to say that he is heartbroken. Now, again, I'm not trying to say that any of these people that I've talked about in this video are legitimate pastors or legitimate Christians. That is not the goal of this video. It's also not to say that they're not, but we definitely know that, the flagrant sexual and financial infidelity that goes on at Hillsong is very unacceptable. And I do want to highlight a take that I had on this when Brian Houston was resigning from Hillsong in the first place. And I speculated that this could be the end of Hillsong at the time. And I think that prediction is really coming true. And it's not because that Hillsong... It mostly was about the leadership crisis. Like, Brian Houston, for all his faults and for, all his bad preaching and all that stuff, he was someone that could manage a brand. He is someone that could manage a company. And he was also someone that could at least bury scandals long enough, for several years. Because, again, these people have been doing all this sexual infidelity for years. So he's been someone that's been able to manage and weather the storm for a lot longer. And in the middle of a transition of a leadership at Hillsong, this is a prime opportunity for the mountain of scandals to overwhelm the organization and for more. And what we are seeing is leadership crises emerge in all these church franchises. Hillsong Dallas would collapse. Hillsong Atlanta needs a new senior pastor because their current senior pastor evidently did not sign a non-compete clause, and he's going to be starting his own woke church to compete with Hillsong. And then we have Hillsong Phoenix, another fast-growing, rapidly growing area in the United States, and he wants out, so they will either lose that location or he will start his own location in the Phoenix area, presumably. So Hillsong, they're cannibalizing their own support, and because these are personality-driven churches, these are personality-driven churches, so many of these people are probably going to leave Hillsong Atlanta to follow their former pastor. Many of these people are probably going to leave Hillsong Phoenix if Terry Christ has to leave Hillsong Phoenix. So this is a personality-driven church, and the personalities are growing in their own individual ambition, considering they're not the ones hemorrhaged by scandals that they likely don't have to do with. But who knows? I'm not going to say that none of these pastors are committing that, because it's Hillsong, so a lot of things fly over there. A lot of things fly over there. So this is just a really shady organization, and you shouldn't attend a Hillsong church. Shouldn't attend that. So anyway, that's really all I wanted to talk about today. Again, this is a news article that I've written, and that will be linked in the description below. So definitely subscribe to the Evangelical Dark Web, the channel, and also like the video to spread the word. And check out evangelicaldarkweb.org. We have an RSS feed that has articles nearly every day where you can catch up on the latest news stories within Christendom, specifically Protestant Christendom. Also, if you really like the Evangelical Dark Web, you can become a supporter over at evangelicaldarkweb.org/join. That is also linked in the description. And that's a Patreon-like system, because we don't use Patreon because they censor. So if you want to support us in that way, you can as well. That is an option for you. Again, leave a comment below about what you think about what I think, and have a blessed day.